Your chest hurts. Not metaphorically. You press a hand against your sternum, like something actually cracked in there, and it has been 3 days since they left. The doctor finds nothing wrong, so why does this feel like a wound? The answer is stranger than a metaphor. That ache is not your mind borrowing a word from physical pain to make a feeling sound more serious. It is the same circuitry. Your brain never built a separate alarm for losing a person. It grabbed the one it already had, the one wired for actual injury, and used it twice. That decision was made a long time ago, and at the time, it made perfect sense. Picture an early human, cut off from the group. No fire to share. No second pair of eyes watching the tall grass for predators. No hands to help drag a kill back to camp. Isolation on the open plain was not an inconvenience. It was a slow-motion death sentence. For most of human history, the group was the only thing standing between you and the dark. And your ancestors' brains evolved under that exact pressure for hundreds of thousands of years. What kind of warning system would you build if exile meant death? You would build the loudest one available. And the loudest one already existed. Anthropologists who study small-scale societies have noticed the same pattern over and over. Across cultures with almost nothing else in common, banishment shows up again and again as the single harshest punishment a group can hand down. Worse in many traditions than physical punishment itself. Not death, not violence, removal. Because everyone in those societies understood, without needing a scientist to explain it, that being cut off from the group was its own kind of death sentence, just a slower one. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar built an entire body of research around this idea, arguing that the human brain grew as large as it did, largely to manage the demands of group living, tracking who owed favors, who could be trusted, who belonged. Belonging was never a soft, optional feeling layered on top of survival. For most of your species' history, belonging was survival. The psychologist Naomi Eisenberger and her colleague Matthew Lieberman set out to test whether social rejection actually hurt in any literal sense, or whether that was just a turn of phrase. They didn't ask people to describe their feelings. They put people inside brain scanners and had them play a simple game of catch with 2 other players, supposedly connected over a network. Partway through, the other 2 players stopped throwing the ball. No explanation, no insult, just silence. And a ball that never came back. What showed up on the scans should unsettle you a little. The brain region that activated was not some vague emotional center. It was the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same strip of tissue that fires when your body registers actual physical injury. Being ignored by 2 strangers in a fake game of catch produced the same neural signature as touching something hot. Your brain, it turns out, never bothered building a separate department for heartbreak. It photocopied the one it already had and filed rejection under the same heading as a burn. Why would evolution be that lazy? It wasn't laziness. It was efficiency. And efficiency is the only thing survival has ever rewarded. Designing a brand new warning system from scratch costs time and resources a species in constant danger doesn't have. Repurposing one that already commanded total, immediate attention was simply faster. Pain cannot be ignored. Pain interrupts everything else you're doing and forces you to fix the problem right now. So when being cast out became just as lethal as a wound, your ancestors' brains rerouted that threat through the one channel guaranteed to get noticed. What kind of proof would convince you that a feeling and a physical wound were running through the exact same wiring? Here is where the story gets stranger and a little bit useful. In 2010, the psychologist Nathan DeWall ran a study most people have never heard of. He had participants take a standard over-the-counter painkiller, acetaminophen, the same compound found in regular Tylenol, every day for 3 weeks. Nothing else about their lives changed. No therapy, no new relationships. Just a daily pill and a daily journal logging how much their feelings had been hurt. Could 3 weeks of a headache pill actually soften something as enormous as heartbreak? By the end of the 3 weeks, those participants were reporting measurably less sting from the small social wounds of everyday life. A friend's offhand comment. A canceled plan. The quiet sense of being left out of something. Brain scans backed up what the journals said. When researchers later excluded these same participants in a lab task, their dorsal anterior cingulate cortex showed less activity than the brains of people who had spent 3 weeks taking a placebo instead. A pill made for headaches was quietly turning down the volume on Heartbreak. Sit with that for a second. What does it actually mean if a literal painkiller can blunt the sting of being left? If a literal painkiller can blunt the sting of rejection, the sting was never just a figure of speech to begin with. It was pain, full stop, running on pain's own machinery, indifferent to whether the injury came from a wound or a goodbye. Your nervous system does not file these as separate categories. It never has. And here is the twist underneath the twist. The part that should actually change how you think about whatever you're carrying right now. You would not want this system gone. The psychiatrist John Bowlby spent decades studying why infants fall apart the instant a caregiver leaves the room, and why they calm almost instantly the moment that caregiver returns. He called the underlying wiring an attachment system, a survival mechanism that rewards closeness with comfort and punishes separation with real physiological distress, on purpose, by design. Closeness had to feel good enough that your ancestors fought to maintain it. Separation had to feel bad enough that your ancestors fought to end it. Those two settings were never going to arrive separately. They are the same dial, turned in opposite directions. Why would your body build something capable of feeling this good and this bad out of the exact same wiring? You cannot have one half without the other. Strip away the part of you capable of this much pain, and you strip away the part of you capable of this much love right along with it. There's a reason the same hormone tied to closeness, oxytocin, the chemical your brain releases during hugs, during sex, during the simple act of feeling safe with another person, is also the chemical most closely tied to the distress of losing that person once it's gone. The reward and the punishment were never two separate systems competing for space in your skull. They are the same system, built to pull you toward people when you're close to them, and push you back toward people when you're cut off from them. The ache is not some flaw sitting beside the bond, slightly off to the side, ruining an otherwise clean design. The ache is the bond. It is the exact price the bond was always going to charge, quietly written into the contract before you ever signed it. So what does any of this actually look like for you, today? Nowhere near a savanna, with predators nowhere in sight. You don't have lions in the grass. Nobody's survival depends on tonight's fire being shared with the group. And yet you still flinch when a text sits there marked read for 6 hours with no reply. You still feel something drop in your stomach when a group chat goes quiet, right after you post something that took courage to say out loud. You still replay a goodbye on a loop at 2 in the morning, searching for the one sentence that might have stopped someone from walking out the door, as though your brain is still running search and rescue on a threat that technically ended before recorded history began. And none of this only applies to romance. A best friend who drifts away without explanation can trigger the exact same circuitry as a breakup. So can a parent who goes quiet, or a sibling who stops calling. It just registers the loss of belonging itself, and fires the same ancient alarm, regardless of whose face is attached to it. You still flinch at the word seen, sitting under a message you sent an hour ago. You still find yourself deleting photos, not because the memory hurts exactly, but because looking at proof of belonging you no longer have feels like its own small wound. You still check, against your better judgment, whether someone has unfollowed you, as if your nervous system needs hard evidence of the exile before it can fully believe it happened. Is any of that weakness? It isn't. It's an alarm system doing exactly what it was built to do, just in a world that changed faster than your nervous system ever could. Your ancestors needed that alarm loud enough to drag them back to the group before nightfall, because nightfall alone could kill them. Yours screams just as loud over a delayed reply, because your brain genuinely cannot tell the difference between exile on a prehistoric plane and being unfollowed by someone you used to love. The threat detector is ancient. The threats it now responds to are brand new. Nobody updated the manual. That mismatch is not malfunction. It is hundreds of thousands of years of survival code, still running in the background, still trying to keep you alive in the only language it has ever spoken, even when the danger it's responding to is just silence on a screen. So the next time your chest tightens after someone leaves, or your stomach drops at a silence where a reply should be, you don't have to fight the feeling like it's irrational. It was never irrational. It is one of the oldest, most reliable systems your body owns, doing its job a little too well in a world it was never designed for. It cannot read a calendar. It does not know that humans now survive perfectly well outside the tribe, that exile no longer means starvation, that a goodbye text is not a lion in the grass. All it knows is that someone you were bonded to is gone, and gone, for most of your species' existence, was the most dangerous word there was. Your chest still hurts, not metaphorically, but now you know exactly why. It was never broken. It is simply doing the one job it has done for 300,000 years, the same job it will keep doing long after this particular ache has faded. Because somewhere underneath the heartbreak, it is still trying to bring you home.